Did President Trump capture Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, because of its totalitarian policies that also had a negative impact on the US? Well, we don't know, but the answer increasingly seems to be no. It appears, and again, these are reports, even if they're in mainstream media, that doesn't mean they're true, but it appears as though Trump is leaning towards allowing the regime to remain with the vice president, who is now acting president, taking Maduro's place. Uh, Remember, Maduro actually stole the election, unlike what Trump claims was done in the U.S. and and has been a dictator, and his predecessor was a dictator for the past 25 years, really destroying Venezuela completely. Um, it appears as though that is where Trump is headed. He, has made some disparaging comments about the opposition leader, and we're going to talk about some of that, some of the claims again in the media for the reasons for it. Welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm Razi Ginsburg, joined by Daniel Kraus. Daniel, is this what's going to happen? We never really know. And again, we did a show right after the press conference a couple of days ago, and Trump said, the U.S. is going to run things. So. What does that mean? Who's actually running things? Is the U.S. running things? Does it mean basically the communists stay in power and the U.S. doesn't actually run anything?
I don't know. The fact is that, yeah, it was, or Trump has said that America will run Venezuela. That Secretary Rubio and Secretary Heck said, and maybe some more people will run Venezuela in some way. I don't know what exactly he meant by that, but now it seems to be saying that no, U.S. will not run Venezuela, be it the vice president of Venezuela taking over, and she would be the next president for however long or whatever, and the U.S. might just be okay with that. Um, or I mean, what else is there? Or something that I think is about 0% chance. The fact is that Maduro is going to have his trial. The date was set, I think late March, if I remember correctly. I don't March 17, I have the date. That's where the trial starts. And with the incompetency we've seen so far, I wouldn't put it past of them failing that trial and Maduro being acquitted. Uh, and therefore, I don't know what would happen after. I assume you'd have to get him back, uh, which I don't know what then would mean, because if the I don't know, Venezuelan constitutional law, or if it really even matters. But at least in the US, I believe once the vice president becomes president, it's not like the old guy can come back and say, no, 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 I want to be the president now. So that might create some crisis in Venezuela, but as I said, it's a dictatorship, so those things don't really matter. Um, uh, Trump hasn't met yet Maduro, at least from what we know. We don't know what happens after he gets to talk with him. He might say, he's a great guy. I just had a talk with him. Um, Separately, we had Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying on Sunday that U.S. is not at war with Venezuela, which again is just dumb. This is war. I mean, I don't know what else do you call uh, kidnapping a foreign leader. We might agree with the situation, but again, like trying to act that this is not war is insane. But then Trump has told the reporters that maybe second strike will be ordered, which I don't know what that would mean as well. Second strike where? Especially if we are not at war, what even it would mean. And uh, and he was citing the drug trafficking and opening up its oil industry. Uh, which again, I don't even think that's really was ever the problem, the sort of like trade of oil. Although Venezuela is part of OPEC, so there's gonna be some stipulations there always. And when it comes to drug trafficking, um, I mean, yeah, just some information because I don't think we've ever really talked about it when it comes to drug trafficking. So apparently the fentanyl wasn't even in the indictment. I think it was mainly cocaine. And the fact is that a lot of, well, not a lot, mainly or the drug trafficking mainly goes to the Mexican border, but a lot of it goes through Venezuela. And it either is, and I haven't found out which of these is true, if either Venezuela is incompetent, meaning is unable to stop the drug trafficking, or is complicit, meaning the officials are corrupt and are allowing it to go through. Um, which again, trying to solve it with the war isn't the best way, and I think is a bad precedent, oh, not precedent, but bad reason for this war. I think national security is a valid thing, but again, to solve this drug trafficking thing, to legalize it. I mean, that's how you solve it. Maybe not even legalize it, like decriminalizing or allowing some local production, or doing even something mild like that would stop it. Allowing alternative in domestic USA would solve it, right? Because the fact is, some people like cocaine. That's individual choice, and the fact is, the only way to get it now is you know dealing with cartels in Mexico or dealing with like drug traffickers in Colombia or Venezuela. Oh, somebody
Um,
says it should never be legalized. It is poison.
I saw that. Yeah.
Okay, let's bring. What was the amendment that banned alcohol? Let's bring that amendment back. Like,
Yeah.
come on. Like, there is a
Chandler,
lot of poison. The fact is that we respect the individual autonomy of people and rationality of them to decide what they want to do with their
yeah,
bodies.
Chandler is giving the answer I was gonna give, which is poison is legal, and that's a thing. Okay, alcohol is also poison. A lot of things are bad for you, and by the way, bad for you also depending on you know how you use it, how much you use it. But yeah, this is an individual choice, and it doesn't matter if it's good or bad for you legally. It matters in terms of your choice whether or not to do it. But yeah, once we have government going into, into like everything that we put into our bodies, you end up with, government doing basically you end up with no individual rights to begin with, and of course you end up with government, restricting whatever the latest researcher of the latest lobbyist decides is bad for you. Yeah, you don't want that kind of system, and we see the results of it. Look, people are dying from cocaine mostly because it has stuff in it that isn't cocaine. And so yeah, let's anyway. Couple of things,
Also,
Daniel.
alcohol is a sedative, while cocaine is a stimulant. So if we are going to, rank them, I think it's you always want the uppers and not the downers.
Okay. Different things that you said that are wrong. Vice president, of course, can be temporarily in charge if the president is in the U.S. if the president is temporarily incapacitated.
Okay, that is technically true.
And
Yeah,
yeah, if
but
I'm
I'm
sure
not
if
sure what exactly this transition in Venezuela is.
well, I'm sure if some foreign country captures the U.S. president and holds him for a few months and then releases him, uh, he will be back in office if his term hasn't run out. I would
Well,
assume.
again, it would depend what the transition was like. There is a step. I think that if James was here, he could say there is an amendment where basically you temporarily transfer power to the vice president. I mean, I think during it's usually called like the colonoscopy like act, because it's usually I think it was Bush that for a little bit the what's his name
Cheney.
uh not what.
Cheney?
Yeah, yeah,
Bush.
Dick
Yeah.
Cheney. Well, but the opposite for a little bit when Dick Cheney had the uh, surgery. Was whatever, bad joke, just go on. I couldn't finish it.
Anyway, yeah, this I think this has been used a bunch of times, and look, if Maduro is released, he will be welcomed as a hero in Venezuela, at least by those in power and those who support those in power. So yeah, I don't think that's gonna be the issue. Like, I don't think you'll see some sort of civil war in Venezuela because he's back, but the current the communist who took over doesn't like the communist who was arrested. So yeah, another thing is, yeah, there are many instances where there are military strikes and it's not an act of war. You know, America bombed Nigeria a couple of weeks ago, bombed ISIS in Nigeria. There was no declaration of war. Um, is it wrong? Is it right? That's a different question. But if it's not war, again, why was the press conference? Why did it have Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, and Marco Rubio? I can understand, but where was the Attorney General if this is this is a matter for uh, like internal domestic law breaking in the US. So it's very problematic. The US wanted him out of office, out of power, tried some legal mumbo jumbo to justify it and used what I think is the worst part. And again, in part, this is, I'm sure, to escape any to avoid any accusations, which of course would be used anyway about this being a violation of international law. If you're going to play the international law game, you lose unless you are, Hamas or one of those. There is no winning if you pretend that international law is a thing. Um, and yeah, if there is a justification, a national security justification, why not use that? But if there is a national security justification, again, you have to ask questions about why you're allowing the regime, which is illegitimate, as Marco Rubio said in that press conference, according to Trump in his previous term and Biden and Trump in his current term, it's not the legitimate government of Venezuela. Why are you keeping them in power? Well, the Washington Post's answer to that was that he did not like the fact that the what's her name, Machado, the opposition leader, one accepted the Nobel Peace Prize. Again, just because it's reported doesn't mean it's true, but this is has been reported and is now part of the conversation. And the thing is, it's the fact that it's plausible to think that the leader of the free world would think this way already shows what a bad situation we're in. Um, but yeah, he was basically he thought she shouldn't have accepted it. She should have said, "Sorry, I can't accept this because obviously President Donald J. Trump deserves to have the Nobel Peace Prize." And yeah, if this is the reason why he's siding with communists, then he really belongs in the conservative movement as it is shaping up at the moment.
Yeah, I would just say when something is reported, I would say generally it's true, but you have to contextualize it what it really means. I'd be surprised if like Washington Post was it? Yeah, would like lie about like their source. There's probably a source inside the White House that said this is why it happened. That source could be wrong. Like they can have. We don't know who exactly the source is, and we don't know if they have good information. Maybe they are misinterpreted, or they are mis like considering what is really going on. I've seen that apparently the idea for this was going a few months, and we've lost Razi, who should be back soon. So there is there is a question about like what exactly it is, but again, there doesn't seem to be any like Trump seems to be just doing whatever he thinks he can get away with. He was able to get away with this so far. Without the congressional approval, he was able to kidnap foreign leader with no declaration of war from that country. So you cannot like do the self-defense because technically you could argue under self-defense that especially when an attack is imminent, you could do something, right? But the fact is, Venezuela was not planning anything. We don't know. Nobody was informed outside of the Trump circle, and this just happened, right? So again, that's a problem. And there's the separate issue of what is the goal here? Is it the oil? Is the goal to like return oil to the companies, to American companies? Because those were who originally uh, um, worked the oil fields in Venezuela. So if that is your goal, okay, we can talk about it. If the goal is the national security issue of the Iranian and Chinese influence, or Iranian influence, Russian and Iranian influence, we can talk about that. If it's about the drugs, we can talk about that. But Trump seems to be jumping from one to the other, and now talking about second strike, and there doesn't seem to be any clear, as always, right? There doesn't seem to be any clear understanding of what is exactly gonna happen. And this is not unique. We've heard it about Gaza. I don't know. Is Tony Blair gonna be the governor of Gaza? That was planned for some time, as well as removing people to Indonesia. So yeah, commentary is becoming increasingly difficult, mainly because again, I don't know what we are even talking about because Trump doesn't either. I mean, I watched the press conference today and I have no idea what he said. Like, at some point, he started talking about like man versus woman, like lifting weights and how it's different. And I'm like, all right.
Um, Yeah, it is different, but I don't know how that's relevant to this war or non-war or whatever it is. And yeah, again, like we can talk about in the context of America going after dictatorships, is this move right or wrong? But that is not the context as long as you talk about taking over Greenland. That is Trump not understanding what the country he is currently in charge of is, what it was founded on, and what its role in the world is, um, or should be. Thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thank you, Christian, for the super chat. Christian says, rumors say that Maduro was sold out by Delcy, his vice president. The U.S. knew a hell of a lot. They had the exact plans of his private location, including the safe room they prepared to break in as well. A Roose Bolton move. I mean, I hate to disagree on any part of a super chat that makes a Game of Thrones reference, but I don't know where are those rumors, and to what is the evidence that they might be true? Look, I don't know. This is something we will somebody obviously there were people there who gave the US some sort of information. This is a big accusation, and I hope it's right because I think that'll cause more internal problems among the ruling communists and would make it more difficult for them to rule. Um, okay, another comment regarding the issue of drug legalization. You don't think maybe the enemies of the West are gleeful at the fact we're being flooded with drugs? Why should we allow that? We should allow that, first of all, because we are there's the flooded with drugs. Let's move that aside. Why should we allow people to make a choice? Because individuals have a right to their own life and have a right to choose to drink alcohol, one glass of wine with dinner once a week, or an amount that, would cause liver failure within a week. And it is up to them. It is their own life. And we understand that when it comes to alcohol for some reason. And we don't understand that when it comes to other drugs that in many cases it's completely arbitrary what is legal and what isn't legal. But you want to deal with the enemies of the West, identify them as enemies and fight them. That's how you fight them. And look, there are countries that the U.S. shouldn't be trading with and shouldn't allow trade with at all. But it's not because of them providing the kind of goods that we think are bad for people. It's because of the actual threat that they might pose.
Yeah, and also just a heads up. Neither Russia nor China have free press. You think China and Russia don't have a drug problem? Especially Russia has an insane drug problem. And the way they try to solve it is they just lock everybody up, and then they send them to front in Ukraine. Again, you don't hear about those things. Either one, because you're consuming some propaganda that they don't talk about these things, or two, yeah, it's just not reported as much, right? Because you simply do not have the free press to really talk about it. But again, whenever we talk about the problem, you should never talk about the problem if you are not talking about the solution. And the idea that a solution shouldn't be decriminalization, allowing legal production, or even some, you know, because we've seen this in many countries, right? I think Portugal has this, like, or Switzerland even do it. Like, instead of punishing the people who consume those drugs, let some processes of them being able to legally try to get off it, right? Some kind of program that even that you're allowed clean legal consumption for some time to like get over. I think even something like this is a step towards better, if we are compromising on not allowing the full freedom for the individual. But the idea that the way you solve it is you go like and I always bring up the example from Grand Theft Auto, right? Where like in one of the missions you go shut down like people petitioning to legalize marijuana because you are a marijuana producer and you do not want them to shut down your business because you're a criminal who's trying to make money off that. So yeah, the way you solve this is always make their business impossible. The only way because once you put something in the outside of law, right, where you have no police protection, you cannot call police if somebody sells you bad shit. Like, you cannot call police. You do not have the defense of law. Then you are in the criminal world. And criminal world, in that world, the strength wins. Whoever is most violent wins. So yeah, then you have cartels that you have to deal with. But legalizing it, or as I said, not even legalizing, decriminalizing, or even, let's say, allowing imports from other countries to be legal, right? But they have to have certain cleanliness criteria. Then like there's so many ways you could just make it so much easier.
Um, yeah. Uh, Thank you, Jeff, for the super chat. Jeff says quotes the movie Child 44. There is no murder in paradise. Nate says, by the way, I love when we have disagreements with people in the chat who aren't trolls, who actually like our stuff and agree with us on a lot and disagree with us on this. But you guys are wrong. So Nate says, uh, Razi, if it theoretically destroys a society, you agree it should be illegal. I don't know what that means, but I know it terrifies me just to hear about it because the idea that, you're about to do a line of Coke or to smoke a joint or to, drink a can of beer and somebody says you can't do this because you're destroying society. I mean, that is collectivism. That is collectivism on steroids. That's that, and again, that can justify anything. It can justify, government really like deciding how you, what kind of food you consume, what kind of everything about your life. What if we don't have enough doctors or cops or teachers? You have some career aspirations, but society wants you to do something else. No, collectivism is never good. And the idea of, you living your individual life to make sure that society functions in whatever way that it eventually will be some dictator decides is good for society. Uh, yeah, that is absolutely something I'm 100% against. Thank you.
And I would just say, societies that once allow freedom and fall apart, those societies don't deserve to exist. I mean, what can you do? Like this is the same thing with when we talk about Palestinians, right? Whenever you give them any amount of autonomy to do something they want, they use it to kill Jews. I mean, at some point we just say, okay, this is not a society that that can exist. The fact is that freedom is for the best within people, and if the people don't want to be good, there is nothing you can do. No force you can try to impose, no laws you can try to impose to make them act good. I mean, I don't do correct things because it's law. I do correct things because they are good, and that's what I want to do. I don't abuse drugs because it's kind of lame. But I do use occasional. We shouldn't talk about ARCK parties.
Yeah. By the way, I'd love to have this conversation continue. We do have the reality show coming up, so I'm going to quickly read. Thank you, Christian, for your super chat. I will read that. Christian says, Victor Davis Hansen says, some drugs are disguised as aspirin, so people could take fentanyl without choosing or knowing. If true, that would be indeed a physical attack. But is it true? I don't know. I mean, you should, with drugs, you should probably put on the label what it is. And yeah, look, there's things can happen. People can be allergic to, stuff without knowing they're allergic to stuff. We should absolutely, as individuals, do our best to know ourselves and know, what we can handle and what we can't. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
and
I mean, I just look because I was wondering. I have ibuprofen, pills that if it's not ibuprofen, I should be able to sue the company that sold me or the specific pharmacy that sold me that, right? But once you are on the black market, the only way to do something is take a bath and go beat up the drug guy who like sold you the stuff. Because what else are you gonna do?
and Okay, I'm gonna reply to Nate on this because I absolutely have to, and then we will go to the reality show, and we will at some point cover this topic as one topic for a show. Nate said, "So you're saying since it's arbitrary where you draw the line, and therefore you can't do anything, we allow abortion, and that also means you need to draw an arbitrary line between life and not life." Well, no, birth is not an arbitrary line. You're dependent on a host, until that point, and then you're not. So that's not arbitrary. And no, I wouldn't draw a line anywhere. As an individual, you choose, what to do, what to put in your body, and that's it. Government politicians do not get to decide. I don't think Trump knows what's best for you more than you know what's best for you. Um, okay, this will be covered in the future, but we have some more, unfortunately, Megyn Kelly to talk about on the reality show, which starts in a couple of minutes. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, everybody, for
Can,
watching
can,
the
can I just
reality.
quickly throw in one more thing? Somebody's asking, have you ever had a hangover? Reza and Daniel, travel is addictive quality of all drugs. And yeah, I would say like, yeah, most people, I think it's like bad philosophy. Most people use drugs to evade reality, right? That's a bad thing. And I don't necessarily want to like condemn everybody who like uses drugs or drinks alcohol or anything like that. But all of it's personal values. You have to look at your life and see what is actually fueling your life, your values to the highest potential that you think is right. That is what is at the end. And that is for every individual to do. That's why I cannot necessarily tell everybody you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. That's why you have individual mind. So I don't have to tell you that. An idea that the government now comes in or other people tell you, okay, yeah, you have values, you have independence, but these particular things you just shouldn't do. Unless it's, of course, violating other people's rights.
I have to say, I've never wanted to try anything, other than alcohol and marijuana. But thinking of our topic for today's episode of the reality show really it makes me want to go find the nearest heroin dealer. But I won't because I can make that choice, and I will be able to make that choice even if heroin was legal. Yeah, Megyn Kelly Guide to Success is following this show. We'll see you there. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, everybody, for watching. It starts in a couple of minutes. Make sure you tune in.